Everything you see here, the idea is it's also, I guess, an attraction for visitors to come and understand and learn more about cider.
Hello, my name is Ria Windcaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Bringing us into episode 462 of Cider Chat was Luke Benson. He and Charlie Innes, the cider maker at the Newt in Somerset, had a sit-down conversation with myself back in the fall of 2024. And we are now finally rolling out this really amazing story of a site that you don't come across too often, at least not in my universe. This is a luxurious estate. It's considered the top boutique experience in the United Kingdom, and it's based in Somerset, England, which is cider. It's like a rich cider region of the world, and certainly for the United Kingdom. So it's very cool that they have this showcase for cider at the Newt, and we're going to be getting into that conversation shortly with both Luke and Charlie coming up because they are our featured guest. But let me just give you a little touchstone here to consider. The Newt itself was founded by South African visionaries Koos Bekker and his wife Karen Roos, and they have a sister winery in South Africa, and you'll see links in the show notes to that. So they're doing something very similar where they started off in South Africa highlighting wine, and now they're here in Somerset, England, presenting cider. They have cider making courses, and they have this immersive experience where people see cider making in real time, and it might be an audience that is perhaps more urban, hasn't had that experience before, knows cider as one type of drink, and they get to come to the Newt both as day visitors, and then they offer this boutique hotel experience. There's restaurants on site. There's what I would call like a wildlife park. That was really, frankly, it was trippy to experience. It's kind of like a mini safari out in the middle of Somerset. There's a walk through the treetops. It's an elevated walkway that goes through the treetops. There is a crystal cave. There are orchards that are kind of young because the Newt started off in like 2018, I believe. So we're looking at a mega project. After the sit-down conversation I had with both Charlie and Luke, I then went with Luke and Arthur for a ride about, kind of like four-wheeling it, but in a golf cart type of thing, all over the landscape. And Arthur is, well, he's a visionary of another level. He was really behind the concepts and the whole setup of the Newt itself. So it's deep history that he was sharing of the surroundings, and then took us for some vistas, brought us by this ancient tree, and then down into a facility that they are dry aging the beef from the farm there. It just was an absolute surreal experience, all surrounding cider. So we're going to get to that shortly. Do stay tuned for that. But first, as always, in case you don't know, and you're new to Cider Chat, and you haven't hit the follow button yet, we always begin with a wee bit of news from out and about in Ciderville. We're going to swing over to California, Sebastopol, California, to be precise, which is a little north of San Francisco. So if you're in that region, coming up on Solstice, which is June 21st, check out the event happening in concert with Ethic Ciders. It's going to actually be in the home orchard, and this is a barbecue event featuring A&M Barbecue, and I'm going to have a link in the show notes here for the tickets. I really want to give a big tip of the glass, as always, to some of the first folks who were supporting Cider Chat, and that would be Ethic Cider way back when. So we don't forget that. We definitely don't forget that here at Cider Chat Central. Folks who have kind of stood up when Cider Chat was just starting out, trying to keep things going, and to be truthfully, we kind of still feel like that. We're still trying to get things going 10 years later. So tip of the glass to Michelle and Ned there at Ethic Cider. Good luck with that barbecue event. I wish I was out in California for that because it sounds absolutely delightful and delicious. Once again, that is June 21st in Sebastopol at the Ethic Ciders Home Orchard. We're going to swing over to Germany right now. We got a note from the folks at 1785 Cider. That would be Wendy and Patrick. They have been on the podcast. And they wanted to make mention when they saw that in last week's episode, I was talking about that petition to the European Union to not go for 50% apple base in all ciders. This is what the European Union is currently looking at, which is almost shocking for me to say out loud. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I get a cider, I'm expecting that's going to be 100% apple or pear or palm, whatever it is, in that bottle, can, or glass. But truthfully, my friends in Ciderville, that doesn't always happen. There are, cider wannabes, under the disguise of the cider label, but they have like so much water in it that it's really considered an alcopop. So not only is there a petition out of Sweden that is really pressing the European Union to not accept a 50%, but go for 100% juice, there's also another thing happening out of Germany, and let me just read it because I don't want to mess this up. It says, thanks for calling attention to the petition. In parallel, a group of makers led by at Nord Apple Cider, and that is at Nord Apple Cider. You can check them out on Instagram. They are sending an open letter to the German EU delegates advocating for transparent labeling. They continue on with, it's not about prohibiting anything. Alcopop makers can continue doing what they do, but they need to stop calling their diluted, made from concentrated drinks cider and riding on the coattails of artisanal cider makers. If consumers can't tell the difference, they cannot develop an appreciation for what real cider has to offer and an understanding for the higher production costs that are associated with that. Hear, hear. Well written, and thanks for sharing that, Patrick and Wendy. So, yeah, this is something that's not going to go away. It might take 6 months for the EU to decide or up to 2 years. But the main thing is action has to be taking place right now, and we want to keep an eye on the dial because complacency and inaction tells the suits who are in charge of the rules and regulations specific to this question on how much apple should be in a cider, which is crazy once again. They'll just look at the bottom line, which is, in this case, the euro, right? Yeah. Ooh. So let's get involved. We're going to have links in the show notes to that petition out of Sweden and a link to Nord Apple and, of course, to the episode with Patrick and Wendy of 1785 Cider. Next up, we have a bit of fun news coming out of Moscow. In 2019, I met Alexander Ionov of Rebel Apple based in Moscow in the Russian Federation. Then the following year in 2020, we had a sit-down conversation in Oakland, California at CiderCon 2020. Just a month later, I was in France and was able to meet 4 more Russian makers, which just told me they have it going on there in a culture that didn't really have cider making at its core, like some countries such as the UK or France and certainly Spain. But here we are once again hearing from Alex because, wouldn't you know it, at the Great Lakes International Cider and Perry Company, Rebel Apple won the title of International Cider Maker of the Year. And I want to say, if you don't follow Rebel Apple on Instagram, you're missing something because I think he did the most artistic, kind of twist your mind view. Essentially, he had a whole bunch of slides, and one was a little video clip. And you see Alex there. And he has his like punk vibe. He's just a really engaging guy, really exquisite English, which helps all of us who are not able to speak any other language. But anyways, he's there. It's a view of him, and you're not sure like what's going on. There's something around his neck, and as it pans out, it's actually a woman sitting on his shoulders. Check it out. Anyways, that real was all part of his celebration. So let's hear from him next. He sent this beautiful audio clip from Moscow, his home site of Rebel Apple, allowing us to celebrate with him.
Hi mates, this is Alex from Rebel Apple Cider in Moscow, Russia. And yes, the big news reached us in the end of May when Rebel Apple were awarded with title of the Best International Cider Maker of the Year 2025 at the Glink Cup Worldwide Competition. So yes, это совершенно великие новости. Actually, first time we took place in the competition was in 2023, and that was the first event of winning the Glink Cup Gold for Russia, when we got 3 gold medals at once. Now in 2025, we finished with new awards and really prestigious title, possibly the highest one that foreign cider maker can get nowadays. First time we met with Cider Chat was in January 2020, and as I remember in that episode we tasted a prototype of cider called Bride. It's a sparkling cider made with traditional champagne method, and now after the last competition finished, it's become the most awarded cider on the Russian market with its gold and silver medals. Actually, not only this cider got award at the last Glink Cup, but 2 others as well. The next is called Time Killer Cannabis Cider that got best in class in botanicals, and the next is called Royal Rage Against the Pipin that took gold in wood-aged ciders. By the way, for those people who would like to stay in touch with our life, the best way is just to follow our page on Instagram. It's easy to find, just put in Rebel Apple in the search panel and find Rebel Apple, the punkest cidery of Russia. So yes, it's absolutely great news, and we keep celebrating and keep sharing the news with the community and media. And a lot of people ask me how it's possible, or how did you manage to make ciders of that level. So I don't know. I don't have the answer. It's something natural, I think, because of the continuous hard working, sometimes seven days a week for 10 years by now. I started as an excited hobbyist in my kitchen, growing step by step, dedicating my life to cider making. And frankly speaking, I don't think it's the deal for those projects established as a cider business only. There must be something of the next level of inclusion, some really big idea you put in your art. So as Rio Wind Color says, it's all about love. So yes, it definitely is.
Yes, it's all about keeping the love light shining in that cider glass. And at the end of this here episode, you want to stick around because we'll be rolling out with a song sung by Alex. It's called A Ton of Ciders. It's where a young man is addressing a girl for St. Valentine's Day, explaining how much he dreams about her, and says, I need you more than a ton of ciders, or to be more precise, you are more important to me or for me than a ton of cider. And that says a lot. So it's a really awesome song. If you want to watch the YouTube clip of it, the actual video that he made, go to the show notes for this here episode and you can see it linked right there.
Walking through the orchard.
It's time now for our feature of the Newt in Somerset. This is a 800-acre estate that really rivals anything I have ever seen for any cidery anywhere else in the world. You step inside a vast, state-of-the-art cidery and find yourself in what I can only describe as a cathedral of opulence. You see gleaming tanks, vaulted spaces, and an air of extravagance that rivals the most luxurious vineyards. The whole scene at the Newt is an immersive experience where the rest of the world essentially falls away. You can have day passes there, and of course you can also be a guest. We're going to be diving into the Newt, featuring primarily the cider there with maker Charlie Innes and cellar master Luke Benson. So let's first hear from Charlie, who will be telling us a bit about his cider journey. We'll talk about the style of cider making and also go through a tasting of the ciders at the Newt. So without further ado, I highly recommend that you grab a glass and join this chat with Charlie Innes and Luke Benson of the Newt in Somerset.
I've been making cider since I was about 7 or 8 years old with my granddad, picking apples. He was a home brewer, so I've made lots of home brewed wine, anything I could find in hedgerows. Just home brewing, making beer, making cider.
Somerset based?
Somerset. My granddad was down in Hampshire, but I've lived in Somerset most of my life.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, I've always loved it, always loved microbiology, biochemistry, just the idea of, some tiny fungus changing this beautiful juice into this beautiful, completely different product, So,
yeah.
So when my granddad passed away, I sort of filled his sort of hole in the family, so to speak, when there was no more homebrew or anything for family events and whatnot.
I imagine the press that you were using with your grandfather was like a rack and cloth. And then you must have at some point turned a leaf where you could work at this scale, because it's almost like a laboratory here. So how did that happen for you?
When I went into it professionally, started at Lilly's cider when they were sort of very small, just sort of starting out. It was a bit of an eye-opener, but I soon adjusted to it. It's just increased numbers, isn't it? It's a lot easier when you can chill tanks and things. It's a bit different to fermenting in a demijohn or a little 30-litre container. So
and a different style of cider making, I'm assuming, because Lilly is more of a modern style.
It's all concentrate based.
Yeah, all concentrate, and there's a certain kind of market too.
Yeah, definitely. That very sort of fruity, sort of sweet market aimed at sort of mums and students and things.
Yeah.
But it's not really my sort of passion. I much prefer working with fresh fruit, and we're so lucky here. We've got a facility to store apples. We can store hypoxically if we need to without oxygen. It's just brilliant. Whenever we need to pull out apples, we can just pull them out.
So you could do it year round.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so you're doing that because most cideries will just do their pressing and then finish. So I get a sense that you're kind of doing a double dance here. One is you have the cider, but you have the cider for the guests. Is that
predominantly, for the guests, I'd say. So we've obviously got visitors here to the gardens. We get about up to 200,000 visits a year. So we've got a couple of restaurants on site, a hotel, and the cider is predominantly for the guests that visit here. It's not just a cidery, it's not just a production facility, it's to showcase what we do here very much. It's about welcoming people to the essence of Somerset, which we believe is cider. So everything you see here, the idea is it's also, I guess, an attraction for visitors to come and understand and learn more about cider. So the place was very much built with the visitor in mind to help educate them and elevate the profile of Somerset cider.
It's a boutique experience where you're able to make cider. You have the cider club. People are able to bring home cider. I see cider is now going up, and more folks are looking for the type of product that you're making versus the more sugar-based concentrate cider. Is that true? Do you see that?
100%. We make a product called fine cider, which is an 8% Braeburn single varietal, but made with a Pinot Grigio yeast, fermented very slowly, very, very clean and crisp. And it seems to sort of draw in the wine crowd. I think a lot of people in the UK have been sort of traumatized to some extent. It's interesting watching people sort of taste it and go, hang on, this is not,
really different.
You're sort of, and it's just great. It's fantastic seeing that light turn on in people's eyes and really sort of feeling it, because it's near and dear to our hearts in Somerset. It's really part of our culture and part of our history.
To change the occasion from when you're tasting with people, instead of they perceive cider as pint glass, draft, and you go, no, you're going to drink this with a wine glass. It's a sunny day, you're going to put it in a bucket of ice with a couple of friends, and you're going to treat it as a wine, and they go, oh, it's only 8%, as opposed to, oh my God, it's 8%, it's strong. You go, actually, it's only 8%. It's, share that with a friend over lunch, and you can carry on the rest of the afternoon, kind of thing. So so we're seeing that slowly start to change, and even in pubs around here, you're starting to see fine cider appear on menu. and served by the glass as well, which is really exciting for us to see too.
Very nice. Fine cider, that term, it's getting used, and it's let's just call it subjective, right, to what fine cider is. I do hear the term proper cider quite a bit in the UK specifically. That's not a proper cider, or this is a proper cider. And my head, as someone with more of a bird's eye view of the cider world, is a proper cider is the traditional style of a wild ferment and letting it be. I've made proper cider myself. I still don't know if it would fly here, but you got to try. You're using cultured yeast. Are you also using wild yeast?
We're not using wild yeast.
No wild yeast, okay.
No, we're starting with a completely sterile sort of juice and working on from that. Just to give us the control, we don't just use the same yeast in all of them. We're pretty varied on our yeast that we use. And we do some malolactic fermentation as well. We do a lot of oak aging. But it's it gives us real control.
Oak in the barrels that you have down there.
Absolutely, we do small barrels as well. So
those aren't small barrels down there.
They're the ones up on the
I see
the 200 litre ones. So we've got a few more of them kicking around as well. So we do a lot of them. We're working on some different finishes at the moment. It's good fun. We really get sort of a good sort of leeway to create. We're not looking for the same result in terms of consistency every year with every product. We're taking the apples and we're doing the best possible product we can with them based on just the taste of the juice. Really. So all of our bottles are vintage. That I quite often say our Yarlington Mill, if you look at the sort of multiple vintages we have of that, they're very different colours, different smells, different flavours, but we're just trying to bring out the best profile that we can for each year.
When did this cidery come into existence?
2018.
2018.
Yeah. So actually, this place was making cider before the gardens you saw and everything else was open. This opened a year before the gardens and was built exactly as Charlie said, with kind of creativity in mind to showcase a different side of what cider might be perceived. We use the term fine cider here. I haven't personally used the term proper cider, but I know exactly what you mean. Cider is such a broad term that it's difficult to find your niche, how you want to communicate to customers what you're doing here without just saying, in the UK, we're just making cider. It's like your average pint up the road of Stumbo or whatever.
I think another way to play it is that there's a niche for everyone within cider, right?
Yeah, very much so.
So Luke, you are here more recently.
Yes, much more recent. I've come in with more of a operations and sales hat to kind of support Charlie in what he does, give him the creativity and the tools and make sure that this place is running as best as it can so that Charlie can focus on making the highest quality cider we possibly can. So my background is, I've enjoyed cider for a long time, and I've been lucky enough to try and make it with my dad in my garden when I was a teenager for a few years. As you used to wonder what to do with those apple trees, we had a go at it. Why not? Bought one of the single hand presses and had a go at hand chopping apples and making our own. I can't say it was anywhere near as good as what we do here. But yes, I've been enjoying cider from the other side of the bar, I guess, for a while. And I've come in very much to support Charlie and give him the license to do what he does best.
Can we clone you? Because I know a couple thousand producers out there right now who would like to have someone doing exactly what you're doing, Luke, so that they can just focus on the art of cider making.
Yes, I'm just trying to make Charlie's life as easy as possible so he can focus on that. And I'm very fortunate. I've lived in Somerset for 5 years. I grew up in the county next door in Wiltshire. My wife's from Devon and we chose to move down to Somerset 5 years ago. So I've been visiting this place for 5 years, and when a job came up with the kind of job description it had, it seemed like a no-brainer to apply for it. And I feel, I've been here a month and a half, and I feel very lucky to work alongside someone like Charlie and understand and learn from him too.
I'm very, very lucky to have someone with the organisational skills.
Wow.
Allow me to focus on apples.
No kidding. And Charlie, how long have you been doing this? Did you come in in 2018?
No, I've been here since last summer basically.
Summer.
So just over a year and 3 months or so. Not a huge amount of time. But just absolutely love working here. Honestly, we've got 65 varieties of apples out there in the orchard, and a lot of really sort of old heirloom varieties, and it's just a privilege getting to work with some of these older varieties,
Is there more to the team here than?
Yes, because we sit alongside a farm, so the farm and orchard, we've got a team that manages that alongside us as well. We've also got a woodland team, so it's on all of our parts to kind of to keep the place up to scratch where possible. And in terms of in the cider cellar itself, we have 2.5 cellar hands, because Karen comes in a few days a week as well.
Let's get in a little bit more on the cider making style here. you have 65 different varieties, some heirloom varieties. That orchard was planted in
various ages. There's about 70 acres out there, but our oldest orchard is about 5 years since it was put in. So I think it was put in 2018, 2019. Our youngest orchard's only been in for a few years now. We operate a no spray policy. Currently, we've basically given it a break for the last couple of years. The weather it's been awful. I'm sure you know it's been terrible for apples the last couple of years. So last year was just rain. This year's just we didn't really have much frost through the winter, so the insects have just been rampant out there. And we basically use wasps as our sort of main control here, as sort of pest control. But even the wasps have really been struggling this year. But we're looking forward to a good year next year. We're going to have a really good pruning session this winter.
Is this high density orchards or?
It's all traditional, full standard trees, 50 feet apart. The idea with that is that if we do have a disease or an issue, we can deal with it before it spreads too far.
I suspect you could,
And that's the idea, really. We don't want to be spraying everything constantly. You know, we have bees out there. We have entomologists working with. You know, we've got so much wild bee population going on out there. It's, you know, we've been documenting it every year. And it's just incredible, the diversity that's sort of coming into our orchard. It's fantastic to be out there in the summer with all the wildflowers and the bees just alive. You know, you can really feel it, a very different feeling to a high density bush orchard.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fairly clay soil here with a good sort of sandstone base. So it's not the worst draining, but it's probably not the best draining.
From what I understand, Somerset, so that's not unusual. Do you have any pear trees?
We have a few sort of, just that we don't use, sort of production trees, but just sort of dotted around the estate.
Not in the orchards.
Not in the orchards, no. We did before my time. There was some Perry pear trees planted out there, but they didn't make it. Perry, you know what Perry pears are like.
Yeah, they're snickety.
They are.
They're snickety.
They keep you on your toes.
We'll keep that on the down low. You don't upset the pears out there. Are you bringing fruit in from other areas? Are you able to do that?
Absolutely. So this year we've brought in some Katie apples that we're doing a single varietal for our cider club. We actually went up to Herefordshire for those because they have had so much better frost this year than we did. So that there is night and day between what it is up there.
Interesting.
It's just 50 miles north, and it's so much better.
You're very, very lucky to be in a country that has some amazing apples. Let's talk a bit the equipment that you're using. The equipment geeks, like all of us, I want to know what brands are you using.
So I don't actually know the name of the actual press.
Varan.
Is it Varan? Yeah, it's a Varan. Yeah. So it's Austrian, brilliant bit of kit. Very small, very compact, but it's just absolutely flawless, really. We've got 2 holding tanks outside that we'll usually store the juice in overnight. We'll let it settle out, any trub, any kind of starch or anything that's in them.
So do you do anything? It comes in, you have the juice, you add anything to it at that point?
Usually just an enzyme, pectinitic enzyme, just to sort of just clear the juice a bit, just to save mess, because we're using fairly flat bottom tanks in here. It's much better to settle out there. We keep the mess outside that way. Right. You know what it's like when you're cleaning tanks full of trub. You end up with just gunk everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
So we generally keep all of that mess out there. We'll settle it overnight, then we'll bring it in, pitch our yeast the next day.
Okay, so you pitch the yeast and it's in these tanks when you pitch it.
Yep.
Is there any filtration?
The idea with having these 3 Spiegel tanks on top of each other, they're not linked in any way. So what we'll do is we'll do the initial fermentation in the first ones, and then we'll rack by gravity. Using a pipe. So we're not cavitating. We're very conscious of DO, dissolved oxygen. So we're very careful to rack nice and slowly, just using gravity. So all of our ciders are racked at least twice, from the top into the middle one. We usually give it about a month's sort of fermentation on average. Then we'll rack off the lees into the second tank. We'll give it another month just to settle again. We'll have another smaller layer of lees. Then we'll rack again to the bottom tank. And it is bright as a button by that point anyway. Very bright. And then we'll give it at least sort of, generally we're looking at about 6 months of maturation before we're actually blending and bottling. And we generally will cross-flow filter on the way up to our blending tank from the bottom. We'll usually back sweeten with our own apple juice. So we'll freeze a batch of each of the apple juices that we press for cider and for...
Is that freezed juice that becomes concentrated? Do you take the water?
So sometimes we'll do freeze concentrates for back sweetening. We do a freeze concentrate for our ice cider anyway. So we quite often have a bit of that kicking around.
So you'd use some of your ice cider to the back sweeten?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh.
We're always messing around with different recipes and different things.
Yeah.
But that's what keeps it keeps the passion going. And it's fantastic to bring in the young guys, into the industry. Like Harry there, absolutely passionate about wine. He's only just had his 19th birthday. He's already on his level 2 sommelier. He's absolutely...
He's reading all your studying notes, isn't he?
Because I trained with Peter Mitchell. He's going through all my old notes and everything, and he's absolutely loving it. And it's fantastic that he has the ability, to mess around with a small tank. He can make his mistakes. It's not going to cost us an entire year's production or anything. It's great just instilling that passion, and having the equipment and the space to do it.
Yeah. Well, on that same note, how long has it taken you to get used to this kitchen? Because this has its own bells and whistles. Sometimes when it's so finely dialed, that has its pluses and minuses.
Yeah, it's taken me a good year to sort of get to grips with the sort of intricacies of it. The first thing I'm looking at is dead legs, any kind of pipe work that's on a dead end that there could be any kind of gunk built up in.
Yes.
So I'm very conscious of hygiene in the way I make cider anyway.
Yeah.
We've all made our mistakes and had a load of vinegar at the end of the year, haven't we?
Right. So the pumice, what happens to all that byproduct of the cider?
All of our pumice, I'd say the massive majority of it goes straight to our composting. We've got a massive compost facility here. We make an apple waste sourdough bread with a lot of our pumice. The bakers will come and collect it off the end of the press. They'll freeze it until they need it.
So they're looking for a certain kind of apple variety?
They generally go for our John o' Gold that we make our apple juice with. That's their favourite one. But they take Braeburn as well.
That's a good tip.
Braeburn and John o' Gold are kind of two of our sort of staple storage apples because they store so well. Like right now we're filling up all of these tanks and they'll be fermenting away. As soon as we've filled all of our tanks, we switch to making apple juice. So at the moment we're making Red Love because they don't store very well, the Red Love apples. But we'll switch over. We've got a delivery of John o' Golds coming in next week. They'll go into hypoxic storage and we'll use them as soon as we've run out of cider apples to press. We'll be pressing John o' Gold for juice. Yeah.
Can we talk about that storage you're saying?
Hypoxic. Atmosphere controlled. So we're storing the apples about 2 degrees Celsius and very, very low oxygen. We're scrubbing the oxygen. So a sort of thing that you don't have this in the cider world, really. It's not something that's sort of...
No, it's not too common, no.
So it's
because people want to press their apples immediately, and there's different schools of thought on this.
It works beautifully well for the juice, especially with John o' Gold. It seems to improve actually the actual quality of the juice. It sort of really brings out that nice malic, sort of crisp acid a little bit.
Interesting.
Very nice. Some varieties, as you know, just won't store at all. So like our Red Loves right now, they're it's a luminous red juice, but you have to get them pressed very fast.
Now people could come to the Newt and have a day pass.
So you become a member of the gardens throughout the year. So you pay an annual membership to become a member of the gardens. You can bring guests along for the day. So if you're a member, you can bring friends, family. And once you're here, we've obviously very much focused on cider for obvious reasons, but there's plenty to explore when you get here. We've got 3 museums on site. One is Roman Villa. One is related to the history of gardening. And then we've got one around the Byzantium, which is a focus on bees and understanding bees as well. Beyond that, you can walk around all the gardens, see the kitchen gardens. There's 2 gardens, one the other side of the road, which we'll drive up to later. There's a deer park for just walking with friends. There's a woodland walk that's path that is at tree level that goes through the trees. So there's a lot more to what we do here, but cider is very much at the heart of it. And that's why when we talked about when this place started, it was the first thing that was built was the cidery and the orchard. So we were making cider before the hotel and the gardens opened, so that the cider was ready to be enjoyed by visitors.
And what year are we talking about?
The cider in 2019, they reopened our doors.
All right. Yeah, that's why I hadn't really heard about it too much.
Yes, it's very new.
This building was completed in 2017, and the first lot of cider was bottled 2018. It was built along the same lines as our sister company down in South Africa, Babylonstoren, which is effectively a winery with a hotel surrounded by vineyard. And I think that's the idea here, was to have a hotel with a cidery as the sort of central focal point of the estate with the orchards running around, which is a lovely idea, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah, sure is. There is like a Somerset trail and map. Can folks who are traveling in this area stop in here and if they don't have like a yearly membership and visit?
We're working on it very much. We want to make that happen. So we currently do other events for the rest of the gardens as well, and we want to start very much bringing cider into that too. So how do we ensure that our cider is discovered by more? At the moment, the focus has been for the people, the visitors here, but we'd love to start seeing our cider drunk outside of these gardens.
Get on the map.
It's something I'm working on at the moment.
Okay, I'm thinking it might be a good time to try a little bit of cider
Definitely,
here. And taste away. So
some glasses.
Your cider club box here?
So with our cider club, if we're thinking about planting new trees or we're thinking about making a new product line, what we'll generally do is make a very small batch and send it out to our cider club members. They get a sort of selection box every quarter. When everyone's got their box, we do a Zoom tasting from in the cellar, a bit of a sort of an online session, if you will.
Okay.
It gets quite raucous sometimes, but it's a lovely mix of people. Some real cider professionals, some wine people that love cider. We're doing some sort of deals with other cider companies as well to try and bring out some more experimental things that they're doing. Trying to push cider in sort of, new and interesting ways without sort of, filling the whole cellar with something we can't sell or planting a lot of trees out there that we can't use the apples from. When we're using traditional trees, we don't want to spend 10 or 20 years pruning and all that work if no one wants to drink the cider at the end. So we're thinking about a new type of apple to plant. Like at the moment, we're thinking about putting some Tremlitz bitter trees. We've got a load of Tremlitz bitter coming this month that we're going to make a couple of different varietals of single varietal.
So would that be like top working your trees, doing that grafting?
So we'll actually put in fresh trees.
Okay. You're not taking down trees to put in fresh trees.
No.
Okay.
No. So we're thinking about, there's all sorts of different options available. But basically the cider club is just that. It gives us a sort of space to experiment, to come up with new things, see what people think of them. Like this hopped one. I know hopped is it's not very common in the UK. Definitely a lot more common in the States. But I love Braeburn. It's one of my favourite apples.
So single varietal
Braeburn.
And hopped with...
Braeburns are from the Nelson region of New Zealand. And I hopped it with a Nelson Sauvin. So that was discovered 5 kilometres away from where Braeburns were discovered. So it's a real Kiwi. Yeah. And people are absolutely loving it. So we're definitely thinking about adding that.
Okay. Nice. So this is the Kingston Black. A club special. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
So last year we had so much rain, there wasn't a huge amount of sugar in our apples. So I wanted to make something that was sort of sessionable, a pint, sort of gulping cider. I like a pint myself. So I wanted to make something that was a sort of bit more approachable for most people. So it's a very sort of just an easy drinker. It's not complex. It's nice and easy. Easy on the palate. We used a champagne yeast with this one. So you get a bit sort of biscuity. We left it on its leaves for a little bit longer than we normally would, just to try and give it a sort of biscuity, sort of buttery nuttiness to it.
Well, I'd like to first start with cheers. Cheers to you both.
This is much more the British sort of pint style that you'd get in a pub compared to the majority of our ciders.
I don't get much single varietal Kingston Black in a pub. But you point me in the direction where I could find that, okay, before I leave. So the color, what would we call that color there?
Just it's a nice sort of pale amber, is it? Pale
the clarity is crystal clear. Little tiny bubbles.
This is just force carbonated. We've dialed it into sort of almost trying to get that sort of almost a Prosecco finish to a lot of them. We do vary the carbonation depending on the product, but this one's a bit sweeter than what we'd normally do, and this is sort of it's just the Brits like quite a sweet cider.
So are you back sweetening this one here?
So this is back sweetened,
And what are you using to back sweeten?
I think this was a little tiny bit of ice concentrate of Braeburn, and I think there was actually some fresh Kingston Black juice as well that we used in this one.
It's delicious as it is, for sure. I would love to have this as a dry. And
we do a very dry one as well.
You do one? Okay,
We'll try that later.
We've got our core single varietals. So we do a Kingston Black, which we try and do every year, a Yarlington Mill and a Davenant. The one you're trying here is actually just the club special limited edition. So later on the idea was that potentially at lunch you could have a glass of one of the other ones you want to try those as well.
Just because they don't serve the club specials in the
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's interesting. I see what you're kind of doing here in that you're going for a particular palate. And that's really good when you're educating people about what cider can be, because we have to bring people along to that drier scale that really accentuates the fruit. The sugar always kind of like masks a bit of the fruit there, but dang, this is definitely quaffable, right? Yeah. And what's the ABV on this?
So this is 5.9.
Beautiful. May I see that bottle? I want to see what we have on the label.
That's the limited edition, I think, if you're referring to.
On the label?
A lily pad.
A lily pad. And that's like a little lily? Or
Yes.
A little lily, okay. Yeah. It's a cool logo for it. Exclusively for the Cider Club. It says medium sweet cider, spelled with a Y. Cider spelled with a Y. I love that it says product is Somerset. 5.9% has the info of the site here. And a sparkling Kingston black cider blended with Braeburn apple syrup to give us a medium sweet finish on the palate. Yep. Boom, chaka-boom. And best of all, 2023 on the bottle. So you know what year, you have the vintage. This is what Americans listening really are very jelly about. We want to be able to put the year on it.
You don't do that in the States then?
No, not yet. I always like to say things as not yet.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's different ways that people get around it by saying like batch and stuff. But yeah, the labeling is a bit archaic.
Yeah.
Even the wine puts that on their labels.
It's great sort of seeing and tasting the differences between the different vintages, especially of our sort of staple crops. You know, our Kingston Black, our Davenant, our Yarlington Milk. Incidentally, Yarlington, the village of Yarlington, is less than a mile from here. So we absolutely sort of champion that apple variety. And actually, the original Yarlington milk tree is still there from 1892 or whatever. It's still there. One of our staff actually owns that mill now.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go up and like get a little soil and put it in a little tea bag and bring it home. That's special.
Go
special.
Pick an apple from the original tree.
I know. Is it publicly accessible or is that private?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him.
Yeah. Who is this woman out here in the apple orchard with a weird accent? Oh my God, that's Rhea. Okay, figures. She won't leave. She's like Rip Van Winkle sleeping next to the tree. Well, yeah, that's a great. I could see that as a perfect club special. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So people seem to enjoy that one, don't they?
Yeah.
It would be nice to get that one into a keg, I think, eventually, wouldn't it?
That would be a nice way to pour it.
Nice
for sure.
And I think that would go down well in a lot of the local pubs.
So I'm getting a little bit of the yeast.
Autolysis and the champagne yeast that we use. We wouldn't normally use that in one of these, but I wanted something that would differentiate a little bit from the sort of standard, what people are used to. And it's nice to have a sort of slightly different backdrop to it, if you know what I mean. It sort of almost finishes on a sort of nutty, because we do make a fully terroired champenois technique cider as well.
The plan was to save that potentially to taste at lunchtime.
Okay.
But that's a sort of a 4-year turnaround on that one. It's pure single variety Katie. So
Winston's called the Winston. Oh my gosh, that is such a cute stinking label.
The bottle is pretty unique.
It's a very unique. You wouldn't think it's a
pint-sized bottle.
A pint-sized bottle.
The world's only 1 pint champagne.
That is crazy cool. It has this fun label. Of course, they're referring to the one and only Winston Churchill, and has a little hat, a cane, and the stance. Very regal. I think he would be quite happy about that.
He famously enjoyed champagne, but his favourite serve was, he said, by the pint. So this is an ode to his style of drinking champagne by the pint, if you like, but with cider.
And it's an imperial pint for sure at 11.5%.
Powerful.
Woo!
So that's one of the very few products that we do chaptalize. Generally, we'll let the apples do their own. That one,
interesting.
We have strict criteria on that one.
My goodness, wow. Okay. All right, well, what should we try next here?
We should try the Red Love and Vilbury Club Special. This is the Red Love apple, which we get from Kent. Fantastic apple. Luminous red fruit. The juice is just incredible.
This is mine right here. I know right where my glass is for sure. I want to try a little of that Red Love.
This is one of my favourite ciders, I think, ever. There's a lot of complexity going on. 6.3% with Vilbury apples anyway. Very, very tannic. Very bitter apple. But an incredible profile. Really, the Vilbury for us takes a very, very long time to mature, just to sort of soften those tannins down a bit. With the Red Love in it, it seems to sort of balance quite nicely. So you've got quite a bit. This was a very sweet vintage of the Red Love apple and a very bitter vintage of the Vilbury apple. Fermented together. There's a lot of complexity, quite a long finish.
Yeah, nice long finish. Nice balance on the tannin.
Yep.
The colors now have kind of changed to more copper amber. Clarity is very nice. You get a little bit of that sweetness.
It's got so much depth to it.
It slides into the back of the mouth. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, This was very pink initially, but the sort of time has taken its toll. This
kind of moves on.
Giving it a lovely colour though.
Yeah, fun.
Massively, sort of very, very dark red, right the way through to the core.
Yeah, it gives us such a beautiful colour.
Yeah, we always launch the juice for Valentine's Day. Yeah, it's just the most popular apple juice. It's so sort of acidic. It's almost sort of cherry, cranberry. It's very different apple juice. Yeah, it's a real different product. We absolutely love Red Loves.
So what are you doing with the yeast with this one here?
So this one is just a standard white wine yeast we used with this one. I think it was a B2000 series yeast, very cold ferment. We fermented this, 16 degrees I think we fermented this at, to try and preserve as much the colour and the sort of aromas as possible.
I'm curious how the cider is served here, because this is a little cooler than I would normally have it. I'm going to leave my glass here on the side and watch that open up. Not that I don't mind drinking it cool, it's refreshing, but...
Well, actually, this one, I took this one home because this is the last bottle of it. And I was
oh, really? Oh, my God.
I didn't want the guys taking it.
Charlie,
so this was, I came in my car this morning and it got a bit warm, so I bumped it in the fridge.
I'm like, I could tell that this is going to keep on popping out. Yeah,
it really carries.
Yeah, we get more of the bouquet as it warms up. Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, I love the old varieties, just brilliant. It takes a lot more love and a lot more like time and attention to really to get the sort of flavours, to make the most of each apple. But Vilbury apples, just such a lovely variety. Really
you're going to be doing this one again, aren't you? Yeah, you will.
I'd love to. Yeah. Again, the trees, we're waiting for trees to mature. It's going to be with still young orchards, so.
I have to say, I guess as your trees mature and you have that reliable, I would love to see this as a natural ferment. Because that'll really define your terroir here. When that time comes, I'm sure you'll be doing it. It makes sense that you're not doing it now, because you have the ability to really sink in here, so you wouldn't have to be worrying about any kind of yeast. You're using a lot of different yeast already.
Yeah, and I've always been a little bit sort of apprehensive about natural ferments, but I've recently, this summer, I've spent a lot of time up at Iford Cider, just outside Frome, where I live. And all of theirs is completely wild ferment, everything they do. Yeah. And that guy Joe who makes it is just amazing what they're making and how consistent they are with completely. So he's definitely given me some hope. More.
You have the advantage is that you are doing these small batches. Yeah. And the thing is, it's just time. The wild ferment will truly be symbolic of the Newt, because it'll be like, this is our land.
Yeah.
That just makes me feel warm and fuzzy all over just thinking about that. But I think you're doing a nice job with these yeasts here. You know how you're trying different things, and you definitely get the experiment.
Someone on the cider course I did yesterday actually wanted to do a wild ferment, so we didn't pitch yeast into that. They just wanted to leave it, so they said they'd give me an email and let me know how it's going.
So they take home
a demi-jar.
Okay, nice. Wow, that's fantastic.
It's beautiful, and sometimes it's less than beautiful.
They all picked some different apples, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Oh, it sounds like they might know what they were doing.
Well, there was mainly, I think that one was Taylor's Sweet and Yarlington Mill with a couple of Stembridge Cluster. Okay. So it's an interesting combination of things.
Very nice. Yeah. And you really get the fruit in the final sip.
Yeah, and a lot of that is the wine yeast that we're using. It really sort of captures that sort of essence. It really sort of brings those esters to the fore. It's really nice.
Okay. All right. Well, I see a couple bottles here, and I'm not going to be shy about asking for more.
We should probably finish with the ice, shouldn't we?
Well, I was thinking the hop at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we do signature blend?
Yeah. Let's do the signature blend.
Okay. Tell us about the signature blend. What do we have here?
The signature blend is a blend of all our own apples. We don't use any bought-in apples in this one. I think there's about 30-something varieties in this particular vintage. This is a 2021. So this has gone through a malolactic fermentation in oak. Just not a huge one. It's not sort of knock your head off lactic or anything, but it's a good example of our orchard and a sort of nice cross section of the apples out there. It really sort of sums up. It actually smells very reminiscent of how the orchard smells currently, actually. It's got that sort of autumnal...
Yes, it does. It's alluring. I want to drop into a little bit. It's a little softer than the other ones. And
yeah, it's a lower percentage as well, so it's not quite strong, but it's got lovely variety in it. And it's different every year. Again, this blend, every year there's so many. A lot of these apple trees are biannual, so we're working with opposite sort of ends of the orchard each year, which is great.
It's the one we try and champion, obviously, across the estate where possible. We try and champion and focus this one. As you imagine, this is the one that if you want everyone to come here and enjoy on cider, it's the one that we probably make the most of, I'd say, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And yeah, we try and get everyone to enjoy this. It captures, because it's a blend of the orchards here, it captures the essence of everything we do. We like to. So it'd be the one we'd ask people to walk away with if they were going to try one. Just try this to get
this one here.
Feel for what we do.
So this was in oak barrels.
Yep.
What was the timeline?
So this one was aged for a year in. Some of it was in stainless, and some of it was in these oak vats here, the 2,500 litre ones, and they were quite fresh vats at that point. So it's captured a good amount of that oak, and it's gone through the malolactic in the oak, but in the stainless, it's been quite sterile. So it was quite a heavy, sort of leathery, farmy sort of finish on it from the oak, but a very clean finish from the stainless. So we blended the two together, and we do that most years with the signature blend. We'll partially mature in stainless, partially mature in oak, and then back blend to the sort of finish that we want. There's a lot of passion that goes into this one.
You have it in a smaller format bottle.
Yep.
Yeah.
The tannins are softer, but you still have that full mouth experience with the tannin, the nice astringency there. I'm getting just a slight note of butterscotch.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, both in the nose and in the mouth. Experience.
I love that sort of very sort of faint, sort of almost sort of saddle leather. But I love that sort of leathery finish. So I'm a sucker for a malolactic fermentation.
I am too. So this one, you can really see how it softened it, and that's that cask aging. Yeah, nice signature blend. It's your flagship then.
Yeah,
would that be true?
It's the one that we put into keg that we serve on the bar here.
Right, yeah.
And it's the one that we'll recommend to people in the restaurants with certain dishes.
And 5.5%. I mean, that's a range that I really like.
Yeah.
Because you're going to want more than one.
It's a good
I could drink it, yeah.
That's why you get the idea is you get the full bottle serve, but it's a single serve to be enjoyed, whereas the others you can purchase by the glass.
Okay. It's really about the fruit. And these years with these like high water content, it's going to be very interesting to see what everybody's going to be doing in this region, because you really got slammed, didn't you? So lower sugars.
I've noticed we've had quite a lot of water core last year with the amount of rain that we had. So we're getting more sorbitols coming through. So we're getting sweeter finishes on some of our ciders just naturally. We can analyse the finished product for residual sugar, and we're getting pretty much a dry result according to the computer, but according to the taste, it's quite sweet still, and that's there's a lot of sorbitol.
Back sweetening on this one, just a little bit.
This one's got a little bit of juice in it, a little tiny bit of juice. I think actually we used Yarlington mill juice with this.
So all of these ciders are always kind of like going for that consumer's palate of just giving them a little bit of sweetness.
I mean, we do a few drier ones.
The Red Love, you know.
Yeah. The sort of the drier ones, in this region we call them Bristol style ciders, because Bristol is the sort of the home of super dry cider around here anyway. And we do our standard Kingston Black. I'm an absolute lover of very dry Kingston Black. It really allows that sort of crisp acid to come through.
Fruit, yeah.
It's just so nice. And we will try that in a bit.
Yeah.
But most of the people we serve it to on tours really don't like the dry. They're just
not yet, because they don't understand it.
You've got to take them on a journey. I think our feeling is, as you say, a lot of these you've got a chance to experiment. But if you can bring them on the journey, get them trying cider, get them over their preconceptions of what cider is, and potentially what they perceive it as. You refer to the park bench, white lining, all that. Get them into something, and then you can start to take them on the journey. But if you alienate them again too quickly, you could never get them onto that journey to your likes of the Kingston Black single variety we do.
Right, yeah.
And it's trying to make something that's almost sort of like a commercially available sort of, bulk made cider, but made with just apple, without concentrate, without all the messing around.
Having some concentrate in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't know where that line crosses, but maybe it's like homemade concentrate is a little bit different than industrial concentrate.
Well, it's freeze concentrate versus boiled concentrate as well. Like most of the industry here relies on that sort of bulk made boiled concentrate, but you've lost all the esters, you've lost a lot of the sort of the heart of the apple is just gone. Whereas we only freeze concentrate here, and you really do capture the very essence of the apple. And we're just back sweeten with it. The only one we make with freeze concentrate is the ice cider.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me, being that outside eye on the cider industry, that you are introducing this style versus going right to a dry tells us a little bit about your clientele. And as consumers of cider, that we still have a ways to go to bring them along. And I absolutely agree with you, Luke. You know, I mean, when I do cider making courses, I always do a sweet mead yeast and, cider, because people, their first time, they want to have something that resembles apple juice. But my palate gets tired really quickly of any kind of sweetness. It's just exhausting, especially the amount of cider I drink as a professional drinker. You get really tired of it. So as you get folks coming back and trying that, they'll probably want, I want the signature, because everything, it's kind of like cottage cheese. It feels like so familiar and like comfort of like coming back to the same place. But then it'll be interesting, like revisiting that same conversation 5 years from now. And seeing, I'm going to make a bet that it changes. I would think so. I don't know.
There's definitely a bit of a renaissance happening in the cider community.
There is. It's huge. But for that fine cider level is like a very dry experience with no back sweetening at all.
It's telling, like the podcast you brought out a couple of weeks ago with showerings. I mean, the fact that they're sort of pushing for that finer sort of market now with their triple vintage.
That triple vintage.
It's very telling of the sort of the way the market's moving. I think.
Certainly is. And
it's a good thing, a really good thing.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
I really hope that a lot more of our native trees are going to make it through.
But even with that showering, there's a little bit of back sweetening there. So just a wee bit, right, to make that so. Yeah.
You might get a bottle of the Kingston Black if you'd like to try it. The single varietal, would you like to try?
I won't turn that down.
Try the dry one?
Yeah, okay. I can see Luke's kind of like curious.
Before you head to the ice side, I conscious you said sweetness, so before you head to the ice side, we can try something really dry.
Are you a sommelier?
I'm not a sommelier.
Okay, all right. And I just want to know if there's a sommelier in the room.
We have a lot of them here.
Okay, good. Yeah, because you're bringing up the wines from South Africa. Other ones.
A lot of the people that come through here are sort of on a wine journey, really. But it's fantastic to bring them into the cider world because they come in assuming it's going to be this very sweet, fizzy, mass-produced.
I love that you're doing this.
And it's great to sort of see the transformation happening.
Okay, so let's see. So we have two. We have the special. And we have number 1. So what does number 1 mean on your label here? That's a little bit different from your...
So the number 1 just denotes the dryness. So number 1 is our driest.
Okay.
And then number 2 is our medium Dabinet. And number 3 is our Yarlington Mill, which is quite a sweet apple. So this is our driest. Although the Winston's very dry as well. But I think this is a very good example of Kingston Black.
Same yeast?
Different yeast in this one. I think we actually used an AC4 with this one, an apple crisp yeast.
Okay.
Sap cider.
Oh my goodness. Okay, they'll be so happy to hear that.
Just to try and get as much as we could of that.
Okay, totally different notes.
Yeah. And again, this is 2023 apples, so it was a funny year for apples. Very sort of not the highest sugar content in the fruit.
Right off the nose, you can tell you're dealing with a dry cider.
Yeah.
Right on the nose. I haven't even sipped it yet.
I think the 2022 was much more balanced. I think this year's one is going to be really interesting as well. It's going to be
this thing is part of the excitement of doing it by vintage, isn't it?
Yeah, some of the acidity there kind of shining through, and it relaxes my body because I know it's just a dry cider.
Yeah, it's apples.
That's apples. The apple essence. I mean, that's kind of like the cider aficionado is really going for that pure essence of the apple, and you can't really hide too many things when you're just going for that.
No, you
You can't.
You can't cover anything up if you're not back sweetening.
It's like a Pilsner, or a Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
You can't hide in those styles. That tells you the true skill of a cider maker.
Yeah. This was definitely an experiment. It was the first time we'd used the AC4 yeast.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's captured less of the sort of the esters in terms of the sort of apricot-y kind of that really nice sort of peachy kind of aroma that you get from Kingston Blacks.
Yeah.
It did ferment naturally, quite slow, which was interesting. I was expecting it to be...
Would you like it faster?
I'm just more used to having to chill a tank to slow it down, whereas this one did not want chilling really. It just wanted to go at its own pace. Which was interesting for me anyway.
Yeah.
Because I've not really, generally we work with, in the West Country anyway, with commercial cideries, we work with sort of mainline, big yeast producers making sort of, mass-produced white wine yeasts. Whereas this was the first time I'd worked with any Saf cider yeast at all. We did a trial with AC4 and TF6, the Tutti Frutti one.
Okay, Tutti Frutti, yeah. What'd you make with the Tutti Frutti?
Amazing. We've done a Braeburn one with it, and it is the most zingy, bubblegummy, really
exciting,
interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think you balance this up well. I feel really drinkable cider, and this is not a high ABV either, is it?
6.1, I think.
6.1, yeah. So not bad at all. We're not looking at that over 8%. And definitely getting more aromas on it.
You can really tell the different yeasts we used,
Yeah, very nice.
It's very interesting, the way you talk about, cider aficionado, this by the vintage.
Yeah.
You get captures everything about the fruit. And I feel a lot of people, I'd say almost everyone I know was an amateur wine drinker, and some of the stuff, you go into a restaurant and you could choose a grape. You choose your wine by the grape, and cider's got such a journey to go if it's to get to that stage, isn't it? So it's getting the balance right for a lot of the products we do. You talk about being slightly more palatable for everyday consumers because that's what they perceive cider. Yeah. But you've got a long way to go before we walk into a restaurant or bar and choose a cider because it's a Dabinet or because it's a Kingston Black.
I would.
I know
a lot of people.
So it's about getting, because we want to be experimental. We want to, but we want to draw people in very much to what we're doing.
Dabinet is the UK cider apple.
It's just getting that balance right. You want people to enjoy the drinking experience without alienating them completely.
That's the thing. You don't ever want to make anybody feel like they don't know everything with cider. It's welcoming to everybody.
Yeah.
There's like nobody knows more than anything, and it's just my palate.
Yeah.
In my reality.
No, I'd love to get to a stage where you're walking in and you're going, it's a 2021 Dabinet or 2020.
And that there are people doing that because it's exciting to I just came from France and led a tour there, and we were looking for those exquisite apples of that region, or a Poire made with Plante de Blanc, that signature apple. Like Dabinet is your signature apple for the UK.
And probably Yarlington Mill.
Yarlington Mill.
Our signature apple
from this region.
Because it's evolved right here on the estate.
Heck yeah.
I'm so lucky to sort of be in the very heart of all these amazing varieties.
Well, maybe that's part of your education here, is to really showcase the apples, because I bet a lot of folks, maybe you're already doing this, who are coming here, don't realize how much we crave for UK ciders in the US. I come here and I'm like, I can't believe, look at those apples, and I bite it, and I've been waiting to taste it from this very land on this soil. I just want to go and hug the tree because it's that coveted. And to have that juice, typically it's nice to taste the juice and then taste it fermented, because it really brings you in. And then folks, you have product of Somerset. It's getting that register in folks' mind to realize this is our apple, and how prized it is in other regions of the world. Everybody, every maker or orchardist I know that's making something professionally, by and large, has Dabinet in their orchard, and it's a real bugger to grow in the U.S. I mean, some people are getting it, but it's a bugger. And would want to try that apple because it's so renowned. So it's a good thing to know, because that's something. And the apples are so cozy looking. They're like barrels, so people can really get an affection for it.
Yeah.
Children can, I do. So, big kid, Yeah. And the Kingston Black is also like we seek out these single varietal Kingston Blacks because there's a number of places in the world who are doing single varietal, and it's really nice to do that tasting to see, okay, this is from the Newt, this is from, California, this is from Virginia. We don't really see single varietals in France.
No, it's a bit of a different thing, isn't it? Yeah, no. It's a different.
Not yet. They've come a long way too. And the fact that you're doing hop cider, it's great. The sky's the limit with cider. You could do anything with it. Yeah. And if anybody tells you otherwise, you can't please everybody. Even if you do exactly what those folks want, you're not going to please them. So, yeah.
And I think as far as the hopped one goes, from my standpoint anyway, I've before my previous job before here, I was a brewer at the Brewing Company, just outside my town.
That's good.
So I know my hops pretty well, and I've always been obsessed with hops.
I'm stoked.
And the Nelson Sauvin hop, it's such a delicate aromatic hop. I just thought this has got to go with an apple.
Oh my God, let's drink that one. But before you do open it, I want to say this Kingston Black. The more I'm drinking it, the more it's evolving. Primarily, just to give, respect, that we're trying a lot of different things here. So the palate needs a number of sips to reset your palate. So that's what I'm doing here. And as I'm trying that more and more, it's really finishing bigger and bigger. So it's a little warmer. That helps too.
I find it's quite smooth for the varietal as well, isn't it?
It is.
Generally, Kingston Black's quite a sort of sharp, sort of rounded sort of edges of the mouth. I find it's quite sort of
very smooth,
acrid. But I find ours has always come out very smooth.
Interesting.
I think actually a lot of that's to do with the length of time we rack for, the amount of racking that we do and the amount of time we let it rest for.
Yeah.
We're just incredibly lucky to get that amount of time and that amount of tank space to work with.
And you're doing a gravity rack. The purists will try to take as many links out of the chain. And so gravity fed, you have less turbidity in that. And so there is a certain thought within the practice that's the ideal because you have the height. Why not do that,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just more losses in terms of, if you're always losing that little bit at the bottom of the tank. You're losing 10% every time you rack. But we feel it's worth it for the finished product.
What a wonderful setup.
Yeah.
All right, shall we try that hop? Because I'm very excited now. I'm going to go to the other side of the world in this one here. Okay.
That's perfect.
Hopped cider. Okay, this is my first hopped cider I've had since being in the UK. So I just want to say cheers to new beginnings and to your health.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Charlie.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, popping right out of the glass.
This is a bit of a different fermentation. We've actually arrested the fermentation with this one. So I cross-flow filtered this when it was a sort of... We find Braeburns reliably will ferment down to usually about 7.6, 7.8%. Pretty much every year without fail. They'll ferment down to quite a high percentage. So I stop the fermentation sort of 3/4 of the way through. So the sweetness you're getting from that is the residual sweetness of those Braeburns.
Damn good,
So this was apples sort of a few months ago. This is very fresh. This hasn't been matured. This has been...
Yeah.
I wanted something fresh, zingy, refreshing.
Very good.
And Nelson Sauvin hop, very delicate floral hop,
totally
lychee,
melded.
apricot. I thought it would work incredibly well with Braeburns. So,
Spot on. Spot on.
It's my first hot cider, actually. This one.
That's really well.
I was really scared because there's no real information. There's no one really doing this in the UK. I actually got the idea from your podcast. I heard.
With who?
I can't remember who it was. It was 8 years ago. I remember thinking.
It might have been Tom Oliver.
It might have been, actually.
This is totally balanced.
I find even in beer, to be honest, it's sort of quite often leaning way too much on the hops. It sort of almost gives you heartburn when you drink it. It's just sort of some of these beers that they serve are
crazy.
Bright green, aren't there? There's more hops than malt almost.
You have to, in the US, you have to shake the can before you drink something tasty cider. I'm like, I know, are you kidding? There's something wrong about that.
It's a bit too much.
I mean, but this is really well balanced. You pick the perfect hop for that.
Yeah.
And you get on the nose, and then the taste draws you in. Well done. And I've had a number of hop ciders. I want to say this is one of my favorite hop ciders I've had.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. Yes.
Well, congratulations. I'm serious. I'm very, very impressed.
I think the hardest challenge we have with making any kind of cider with dessert apples is that residual acidity and trying to sort of tame that a bit. So we'll tartrate, so we'll cold stabilize, so we'll drop crystals of it, we'll make the acids crystallize and drop out. So sort of a white wine technique, but works very well for our fine cider and works very well for this.
Yeah, you could pull in the beer drinkers on this one.
It pulls in beer drinkers and wine drinkers and almost the fruit cider sort of followers. The mums really like this one because it's sort of reminiscent of sort of it's almost tropical.
Yeah, the aftertaste, the mouth, it's on your lips. It's like you're in your favorite garden and you want to just lay in the bed of hops. Yeah. It's dreamy. It's a dreamy. That's really well done.
Yeah. It's got that nice herbaceous edge to it. Then we sort of finish.
A little bit of back sweeten on this one.
So the sweetness on this is just from the apples.
Just from the apples. Dang.
So this hasn't been back sweetened.
That's incredible. Yeah, because it's on my lips. It's just really a creamy cider. Yeah, with the hops. Wow. I'm impressed.
We did a lot of trials with this. We worked with Citra, Amarillo. We had 7 or 8 different types of hops. We were maturing and we were working with different things. But this was the sort of, I thought, kiwi with kiwi, so
brilliant.
If they're both from within the same sort of 10 kilometres squared, it's probably worth using them together. And also our previous cider maker, Lloyd, a fantastic guy, great mind. He's moving to New Zealand. Left us a couple of weeks ago. He's got a young family. He's moving over there. I wanted to sort of send him off with a bit of an homage to him.
What a beautiful send-off. This is kind of a cider that would be great with food and also great alone. And that's a happy balance for a cider maker to be able to have a product like that to sell because it hits on all the different check marks. Well, you're certainly doing some cool stuff here at the Newt. It gives me so much hope to see that you're doing this and that you're doing the educational piece. Really is invaluable. And kudos to everyone here for embracing that and that the owner had the vision of doing this too and that you're able to pull this on, keep on bringing the fruit into the glass.
Thank you very much, Ray, for joining us. It's been amazing.
Find the show notes for this year episode 462 featuring the Newt in Somerset at ciderchat.com. You will also get to see photos of Charlie and Luke and also our tour guide, the man behind these curated exhibits there, Arthur, who was bringing us all over the 800-acre estate and just wowing me every step of the way. I mentioned the Crystal Cave that they have there. It's actually called the Grotto, and it has this like Middle Earth experience, just kind of like, I don't know, dry ice or something, giving it like that kind of enchanted feeling as you're walking through the mist. And there is a giant dragon, not really a dragon. It's not called a dragon. It's also actually called a wyvern, and that is a creature that protects the valuable treasures. And they're actually starting to add that onto the label. So we're not going to be seeing the cider coming out of the Newt available for retail at this point. I think they got to get themselves settled in and in their place. We had a meal there, and I think a little bit of coordination on these exquisite meals with the chef and the cider itself is still in the works as they're going forward. And that's to be expected. And let's face it, it opened in 2018, and the size of this complex is just enormous. So to get all the different ducks in a row, or in this case, all the apples in the row, so that the cider is able to be featured, that's a process that they're still in. And maybe that's the point. The Newt is cider tourism at its most polished, and a place where the apple can become part of the grander narrative as it goes forward. And I believe, once done, the drink itself will no longer play second fiddle to the entire spectacle. It can take the reign in the glass and at the Newt itself.
Kicking up our feet.
And I have one more announcement to make, which is we are going to our summer schedule of every other week for the summer. I know. Some of you are totally bummed out about that. But listen, we have the UK Cider Tour coming up at the end of August, and there's a lot to prepare for that. And besides, It's time for some summer fun for this here podcaster. Don't worry, though. We'll be out and about on social media and keeping you in touch. And besides, you have another episode coming up, but it'll only be 2 weeks from now. So hang in there. In the meanwhile, make sure you listen to the end of this here episode and hear the song called A Ton of Cider, sung by the maker himself, Alexander Inova. And with that, I leave you here. This is Real Wind Caller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
Посмотри хоть раз на меня. Ты стройна, как речная выдра. Я хочу только тебя. Ты мне важнее, чем тонна сидра. Проснулся вот отстой. Все было как в реале. Напиток золотой шипел в твоем бокале. И я его судьбе завидую, не скрою. Хочу я быть в тебе, хочу я быть с тобою. Посмотри хоть раз на меня. Ты стройна, как речная выдра. Я хочу только тебя. Ты мне важнее, чем тонна сидра. Ты мне важнее, чем тонна сидра. Ты мне важнее, чем тонна сидра. И твоя голая картинка мне станет лучше Валентинкой. Напишу письмо врачам, объявляйте новый штамм. Я им угашен, с тебя так вкрашен. Ты смеешься хитро, я, наверное, больной. Ведь ты важнее, чем тонна сидра, чем 200 000 литров сидра.
Yeehaw!